So, check one, two. Thank you all for coming out tonight. That's our occasion of what would have been James Booker's 84th birthday. Happy birthday, James. So why do we remember James Booker? What's so special about him above all piano players? And thanks to all our piano masters for coming out. You're all wonderful. Thanks for keeping the drive alive. And James Booker was a grandmaster, in my opinion. I'm a chess player. So why I remember James Booker? Well, there's several things that come to my mind. He had this special capacity to combine the precision of the classical musician with the soul of the black musician in such a way that if you heard him when he was really into it, and the crowd was into it too, they went together, the crowd, but it was just an otherworldly experience to hear him on one of these nights. Another thing that he could do, he had an amazing ability to imitate other piano players. Like, first example of Fats Domino, Earl King used to say he could sound more like Fats Domino than Fats Domino could. And if you look on some of the early records of Fats Domino, it's actually James Booker on the piano, the fine print. Yeah, Fats would come in and do the vocals later, but that's true. And another one is Huey Smith, great R&B group in the 50s, Huey Smith and the Clowns. And Huey didn't like to go on the road. So James Booker would go on the road and ask Huey Smith. He would just show up in the club and say, "How do you do? I'm Huey Smith." And I would have loved to have been there for one of those concerts, because that would have been amazing. And of course, he could do many people. He could do all of Professor Longhair songs, Little Richard, he could do that. Even who's the piano player? Ray Charles. He could do Ray Charles. I have some tapes of him doing a whole session in here imitating Ray Charles. So and also he in this new book that just come out, I'll show it. Okay, excuse me for a minute. This is a new book just came out with Tell It Like It Is by Aaron Neville, a wonderful book, and he talks about Booker in there, and he says James Booker was one of the greatest piano players that ever walked the planet Earth, on page 261. Also, now, moving on, the two questions I get asked the most about James were, how did he lose his eye and how did he die? Now, the eye story, I'm going to get into a bit. When I lived upstairs, first became his manager. I had a bunch of flyers made up. I had a stack of 200 of them. It had a nice picture of him and a little paragraph from the Gambit magazine. And it said, in that paragraph, it said that he had done a little sentence that he had done a stint in Angola. And I showed them to him, and he took a Marx-a-Lot crayon and he went through all 200 of them, and he blacked out the segment that said that he had done a stint in Angola. Now this occurred to him, he did not like to talk about his experiences in Angola. And that's what happened, is I know he was beaten up in Angola. And his eye had become infected before he got out. And he saw a doctor. The doctors told him, you have to take the eye out. If we don't take that eye out, then the other eye is going to get infected and you'll be blind. So that's how he lost his eye. And that happened around 1970. And so then he had two eyes again. And a lot of people saw him before he went out to California. They said, oh, yeah, I saw him, he had two eyes. Well, he did, but one of them was a glass eye. So that's part of the source of a lot of the confusion. And then what happened to the glass eye was he sold it to a tourist for $1,500. So then he had to wear the eye patch again, and that happened in California, I believe. So the story about Ringo Starr, I don't believe, for the reasons Ringo Starr, I believe he told people that the Ringo Starr had him beaten up and that's how he lost his eye, but that's not true. It happened in Angola. He didn't like to talk about it. And the cartoon by Bunny Matthews is wrong. He drew a cartoon where there's a couple of thugs surrounding James Booker, and one of them has a pair of pliers. The implication is that thug took his eye out, but it was a doctor who removed his eye. And then he had a glass eye. But people who say Ringo Starr, they're accusing Ringo Starr of a serious crime. You can't just have somebody beaten up like that. Ringo Starr could go to jail himself. But I don't think he's a multi-millionaire. Why would he? Booker did rip him off for a couple of $1,000. He played on the album there, and he took a check, and he claimed he lost the check, and he went back and got another check, and then he did it again. He did it twice. But you still can't have people beat up or something like that. You can have them arrested, or you can sue them, but that's why I don't believe that story. So the other question they asked me about is the death story, and I'll try to be brief here. But he was dropped off by a cab driver at Charity Hospital. This was in 1983, and he was taken to the emergency room. He was having heart failure. The orderly was wheeling him to the coronary room, and another patient came down from the 5th floor, the mental ward, and started a fight. The orderly that was taking him to see the heart doctor went to break up the fight. Another orderly came along and saw his eye missing and took him to see an eye doctor, where he died waiting to see an eye doctor when he was having heart failure. So that's a sad story of that. Now, I thought we'd do something a little different tonight, maybe have some questions and answers, because if anybody got questions they'd like to ask.
Could you talk about his relationship with Harry Connick Jr. and Harry Connick a little bit?
Yes, when he went to Angola, he knew Harry Connick, and Harry had him released early from Angola. That's when he got out of Angola, but on the condition that he got out of Angola, he had to give Harry Connick Jr. piano lessons. So that's, and then he did, and they got to be good friends. And also that's another reason I know, because I talked to several people. When he got out of Angola, he was required to go to AA meetings. for alcohol and drugs, you know. And when he went to the meetings, I talked to several other people. They used to take his eye from him and they'd steal his eye, tease him, and so he'd say, "Come on, I gotta get my eye. I gotta go do a job." And so they'd give him back his eye and that stuff. But yeah, Harry. There's a story that they didn't show the film, but Harry Connick Jr. had a great line in there. And one time James got arrested, and he called up Harry Connick Jr. and said, "Harry, can you help me? I'm in jail down here. I'm afraid, I'm worried you're going to beat me up." And Harry said, "Oh, James, I'd really like to help you, but I'm 12. So he had a great line in the film you didn't see tonight. Okay.
Who are his favorite musicians in town to play with, John?
Wait, okay.
Who are some of his favorite musicians to play with in town?
Well, when he played here, okay, there's a story when he played at the, first he played here with a drummer named Roger Martin and a bass player named Jack Cruz, and that was a trio they played here. And they played once at the Jazz Festival. They played in the performance tent. He didn't like playing outside. He didn't like the direct sunlight at that time. And he played in the performance tent with those two musicians, and the crowd there was into him. There was a full of the performance tent. It was as big as this whole bar. And he sat down and played, and it was just a marvelous, inspired concert. And when he finished, he got a standing ovation, and the whole crowd just stood up and they gave him, like the Saints scored 2 touchdowns. It was just a great standing ovation for him. That was a marvelous experience. But when we did the album with Rounder, the Classified album, he played with Johnny Vodakovich, Jim Singleton, and Red Tyler on the saxophone. And they played in here for about a year before they did the album. And it was some of the greatest music I've ever heard in my life, right here. But those three.
Was the Maple Leaf his favorite place to perform? What was his favorite club to perform at?
His favorite, I think the Maple Leaf was, because he used to like to hang out in the day here. I'll tell you a story. We used to have a laundromat here, and he would come in the afternoons with Mr. Google Eyes from the Dewdrop Inn. They would hang out together and come in here wearing full suits, and they would come in here with flasks of bourbon, and they would order 2 Cokes. And they would fill up the Cokes. But then one day, one lady, we had a laundromat back there, and one lady came in, and she didn't know anything, but she walked in here, and then she walked into the laundromat, and she screamed. She said, "Oh my God, there's a naked man in there!" And it was James Booker. He used to like, that was the way he did his laundry. He would come in here, and he would strip down to his underwear, and he would throw his clothes in the washing machine, and then do his laundry. Well, they don't have the, oh yeah, there it is. That's why that's a statue there that he did his underwear. The other thing he has there is the cop hat. And that's another story. When I first became James' manager, Dutch Morial appointed a new chief of police, and his name happened to be James Carroll Parsons. True story. And that kind of freaked James out, and it kind of freaked me out a little bit too. So that's when he got him he found a policeman, and he sold him a policeman's cap, and he got a shirt and a badge, and he got arrested. He used to do concerts here. He was dressed like that, and he had a cap gun. some people thought it was a real gun. There was a story that he shot off a .357 Magnum in Tipitita one time. But if he did, then there'd still be a hole in Tipitita's roof. But I don't think there is. Or somebody must have fixed it. But so, yeah, James Carroll Parsons. And so, he got arrested in the Steak and Egg over on Carrollton for impersonating a police officer. So that was one of the times I had to go get him out of jail.
Is there any truth to the story about him putting a gun on the piano at Tipitita and saying, if somebody doesn't give me some cocaine, I'm going to shoot myself?
I never heard it in that. I heard this. No, I never heard that story. I don't. But I might believe it. I would believe it.
When he pulled the gun because the crowd wasn't clapping, and he pulled it and he cocked it and said, "Is James Booker beautiful?" And yelled it at the crowd and said, "Is James Booker beautiful?" So they said, "Yeah," and then he put it away.
I never heard that, but I believe it. Okay.
What about the Jerry Garcia session he did?
Yeah.
What's the story behind that one?
Yeah, I have the recording. I have the recording of James jamming with Jerry Garcia. That was out in California, and I heard it is about 45 minutes long. The first half hour or so isn't much, but then the last 10 minutes or so are really some quite fine stuff.
How did they get together?
How did they get together? He was out in California, and Jerry Garcia had heard of him. I'm sure that Jerry Garcia picked James out to jam with him, and I have the recording of it.
I heard he got stuck in California or something. He got fired, and Jerry heard and wanted to.
Well, I don't know. I know this. He was always getting fired because the problem happened was he had an ulcer. I didn't know this at first when I became his manager, but he had an ulcer, and it was actually he would eat this spicy fried chicken and he would drink a lot, way too much. And so that's what caused him to regurgitate. It was the drugs, or it was the spicy fried chicken and the alcohol that caused him to regurgitate, to throw up. And there are many stories about that. We were driving down to Cater Street one time, and his cheeks would puff out like that, and I knew he was in my car, and I said, "James, open the door." And he opened the door and threw up into Cater Street. And so I looked in the mirror when I was driving away, and I saw that his false teeth that he had gotten by then were sitting in the middle of Decatur Street in this pile of throw up. And so we had to go back and get his teeth.
Was one of them gold?
Had to stop and go back and get his teeth.
Did you ever write a book?
Oh, well, yeah, many people have asked me, why do you write a book about James Booker? And I thought about it, and I thought, well, a book doesn't have any music in it, and I have many hours, 80 or so hours of tapes from him playing here. Those are we made the two posthumous albums, Spider on the Keys and Resurrection of the Bayou Maharaja. So I thought about that. A book doesn't have any music in it, and I thought about writing a screenplay. So I began working on that. I took screenwriting lessons, and I took acting lessons, and I read about 20 books about writing screenplays, and I've actually finished it. I have it here. I'll show it to you. Well, I can show it to you later, but about 110 pages. It's in final draft form. I haven't sold it, but yeah. And I have out of my tapes, I picked music from the tapes to fit specific scenes, which I think I can do better than other people. Franklin, because I did the music here and I did the jukebox, and I kind of know how people react and how they things fit in. So hopefully, I haven't sold it. I've been writing it for 8 years or more, but well, we're actually on the third rewrite or so, and I haven't given up. I still want to sell it.
Who were Booker's favorite piano players?
Who was Booker's favorite piano player? Himself. I don't know. Ray Charles was one. Who was Booker's? I don't know.
What did he listen to when he was in his
I don't know. What? Sorry. Try to.
What did he listen to in his free time?
Well, of course, he had a varied repertoire. He could do all these. He could do Chopin and. But Little Willie, when he played the jukebox, he liked Little Willie John. Was one of his. He would come in here and say, "Play Little Willie John." He had his song on the jukebox. The Let Them Talk song. That was one of them. Yeah.
What about his drag persona, Juanita?
Juanita. That's a good one. Yes. I never really saw him just in drag. He did a little, Jack Bruce told me that story. He used to dress up in drag, and Juanita, which means Little John, that's my name, Juanita. But I'll tell you the story. One of the best experiences in here, he was playing like the Jazz Festival night. Big night in here, and he was here, and everybody in here was here to hear James Booker. They were hanging off the rafters and all, and he sat down at the piano. He had a cape on. He wasn't just a drag, and he sat down and just played for an hour, a beautiful set. And he got up off the piano, and he took a bow like that. He bowed several times. And he opened up the cape and he had nothing on but a pair of red underdrawers. So, and the crowd was applauding. They were applauding wonderfully. Yay! And they went for yay! Whoa! That was great. That was great.
How do you like Papa's a Rascal? I know the Sweet Russian Woman with the morphine in the hospital when he was a little kid. But Papa was a rascal when he talks about his dad and everything, going to Boston with the gangsters girls and people like that. What's the story behind that?
Well, he wrote that song.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite songs. All the songs that are my favorite, you have to get the right version of it. And I have some good versions of that song. People ask, what is your favorite Booker song? Well, it depends a lot on the words. So Swell When You're Well is one of them. It's on the California album, the one where he recorded in California, and he left the tape sitting on a cab driver's seat. And somehow they found him. They found the cab driver, and they were able to make that album. The best version of the Jungle Partner is from the original album called Jungle Partner, in my opinion. It's a wonderful, it has classical riffs in it that shows what I was talking about at first, where he combines the precision of the classical playing with the blues, the soul of the blues music. Yes, what would you like? What?
No.
Oh, no. That's because I was story. The Rolling Stones came to town, and they sent an envoy here. They wanted to get James Booker to play their party. They rented the Riverboat President, and they threw a big party here. And they sent an envoy. They wanted James Booker to play there on their party, for their party. And he turned him down. He said, "I don't like water." So I didn't get to go to the party, and he turned them down. He turned down the Rolling Stones, and so I often wondered, well, they didn't want to pay him anything, really. They didn't offer him anything. I thought, why didn't they could have just thrown him a bone? I mean, this is the Rolling Stones. They can afford it. I don't blame him too much for
Ain't
that.
into that. No, he deserved money. I'm just saying he deserved money.
They didn't offer him anything. So that's, I think, why he said that. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I don't like water
Okay, so let's see if it's time to wrap it up. I guess that's good. And one more question, baby. All right, we're moving on now. But once again, thank you all for coming out. One more guy.
Do you have any stories of him and Mac hanging out, or
Oh yeah, well, yeah, he and Mac played together a lot on Bourbon Street, and they had many stories.
any come to mind?
Well, I don't know. Nothing right now. I'm sorry.
Like maybe an after show type style?
What?
Maybe they were hanging out after their show, and you know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah,
craziness that might ensue.
oh sure,
Just
that's
hanging
certainly.
around having lunch and just having a good time with them.
Yeah, I didn't know James Booker at that time, so I can't think of anything right now. But yeah, he and Dr. John hung out a lot, and they played together. And that was when he also played the organ on Bourbon Street. So,
Obviously, Mac had a lot of
but
respect for
I
him.
can't think of any. I'm sorry.
I don't know, man. I put you on the spot.
I'm sorry.
I put you on the spot. I didn't mean to.
Oh, that's all right. Yes.
One more.
Anyway, okay, thank you all for coming out. Thank you.
Good job, Stu. Journalist you are,
This is
man.
John Parsons, ladies and gentlemen.